So then we went to Korea, and on the way over is when that picture was done in Tokyo. But in Korea, back in those days, Korea was totally backward nation. I mean, you just can't believe. I mean, I can't believe nowadays, you know, they build cars, they build all kinds of big cities, skyscrapers and all that. Back there, everything was on the black market. You didn't dare hardly go off the base. If you took a Jeep off the base and people got cameras, you know, you could get them really cheap through the BXSIs and cameras, and you walked away from the Jeep, you came back, the steering wheel was gone, everything was gone. Everybody just stole. Everything was on the black market. The food in a little market was just all out, no refrigeration, flies, bugs, and have you ever heard the word kimchi? It's like cabbage.
Vegetables.
It's like cabbage, and that's what they eat, and it just reeks. It gets in your clothing. Our base barbers were Koreans, and we got a haircut. The first thing we do is go back and take a shower. but it was very, very backwards. And our gunnery range was up on the Naktong River, and it was between kind of the saddle of two mountains along the saddleback, and we had targets marked out on the sand beach. And they had a compound. I think he was a captain, older captain. I mean, a first lieutenant or captain, and a bunch of enlisted guys that ran the gunnery range that put up the targets, and every time they were totally fenced in to keep from everything getting ripped off. And they would either fly us up there. It was probably a 30-minute flight from K2 Air Base, where we were, up to the range. And we took turns being, when a pilot always had to be up there supervising the air-to-ground, kind of running the range, you know. Mm-hmm. He was just a maintenance guy. So we all took turns up there. And if the weather was bad, then you had to go up by a 6x6, you know, a great big truck. And you went through bombed out bridges, and you'd go by schools that the Army had built for, you know, a nice modern school. Everything was gone. The glass was gone, the windows were gone, the frames were gone, never was used. You know, that's just the way everything was. It was really sad. And you kind of wondered, what are we doing over here? And I think that was the meaning of Vietnam. You know, they had the idea of turning around a country, you know, like Korea did, but it didn't really work. But back to there, the war was really over, so to speak. It was still a combat zone, but there were still bad guys up in the mountain shooting at us and all that. And they would string cables from mountain on the gunnery range trying to chop our heads off. We'd roll around to come into strafe, you know, get a cable, take the canopy right off in your head. So we had guys like that. And we sat alert. There was always a flight of two sitting on the end of the runway with a generator, a powered unit, into the lead aircraft, waiting to be scrambled. And we sat out there for 4-hour shifts. And then if we didn't get scrambled for bad guys, they would scramble us anyway when our replacements were taxiing out. So we'd get flying time. And we soon learned that if the GCI guys told us to go west, we knew we were going to be encountering British Meteors. And they really had neat airplanes. It was a 2-engine airplane. And of course, we're taking off of tip tanks, you know, and as long as you had fuel in the tip tanks, you couldn't pull a lot of G's, because if you pulled a lot of G's, a tip tank would snap off. So, but anyway, they were kind of neat, because they'd pull up right next to us, you know, and they had these big puffy oxygen masks. When they breathed, you could see this bag go, they'd pull up and wave at you, and of course, we were on different frequencies, so we couldn't talk to them. But we'd be sitting there at full power trying to burn off the fuel, so we could play games with them. And they'd pull up and bam, right on your wingtip. And then the guy'd go like that, one, and we didn't know what that meant. So they would stop one engine. They'd cut one engine and say, bye-bye. They'd just pull off, But anyway, back to the Marines now. When they headed us south, we knew we were going to be playing games with Marines flying Panther jets. You ever heard of that? I think it was F9F or something like that.
Oh, yeah, I have.
And anyway, those guys were fantastic because they were used to flying off carriers in the water. And if we got on the tail of them, they would dive straight down into the water. And we were afraid we were going in, and we'd always pull off. But those guys were really tough. So I admired the Marines back in those days. But anyway, then we came back from Korea.